for the person, the new person coming to understand what it is that you do, like, do you have a way of just describing what the therapy? I mean, he didn't call it a therapy. He told me when he
Well, he
was.
did in his earlier days. He did for quite a while. I mean, I think as in his later years, he started really differentiating it. But if you read his books, you'll find he uses the word therapy quite a bit. But
But you do more than what he does. You do you, which
well, I
is.
mean, I don't know if you call that more. I'd say I do me, of course, because
Mm-hmm.
and he encouraged that. He said we all have our style, we all have our way. But what I think I do owe him an amazing debt around the principles that I work from, and I think
All right,
those are
then just
you
describe the
know
principles. I think that
yeah
would be helpful.
yeah well maybe operationally. So I think one a simple sentence that might sum up part of, at least certainly a part of the work is, when people tell their stories, they come and they tell their stories of pain and difficulty and challenge in life, and I think maybe a very short way to summarize it is that we encourage people to be in the act of their story, to be in the action of the story. Now, not in the way of, say, pure psychodrama. There are a lot of other kind of action-oriented modalities, but there's a way in which being in the action of the story, so that everything kind of orients around the action of it, the feeling of it, the emotion of it, the thought, the imaging, the associations. They have an action referent, and and of course, I think that has to be experienced and observed and seen in terms of how that actually works. But you're in the action of your story, but you in a way you pause it, because our stories run us, right? That's the whole problem. We
Hmm.
come in with stories that run us. They have, the term we use is, they all have their own trajectory and they carry us. And we're looking for ways so that the story doesn't carry us. We don't repeat it and it doesn't take us down into the depths and so forth. And so it's a way of being in this action, being in the action of the story, but where you begin to have an influence on it. So instead of it carrying you, you interrupt it, you delay it, you slow it down, you pause it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what that starts to do is it creates a space that wasn't there before. Because if we're in the action of our story, we're in that. And this new space is also a space where our nervous system can come in with a whole other sense of what's going on. And there's a whole sequence of events that begins to happen internally for the client around perceiving how they organize themselves, how they create the action that creates the feeling and the emotion and the dilemma of their lives. And when they see that and experience it, it gives them a handle on it. And so it's very empowering. And I think it's got a very special way of doing it, very, it has its uniqueness, even though it's part of a somatic world, of course. And so I don't know, that's how I would begin to talk about it. But, um, I think each client, when they tell their story, I just will invite them at a certain point when they come to an important moment in the story, which normally they're really engaged in it. There is a set of gestures and actions that normally emerge when they're involved in what they came for. And at that point, I'll ask them to, okay, just stay there for a moment, just stop. And that begins this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that particular pause, and then how you support their own internal listening. And we've talked about that conversation of me to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? How in doing this work, there is a part of me that I normally don't pay attention to. It
Mm-hmm.
has a huge amount of information, which suddenly begins to be very present and very operative. And people connect to that, even people who have very little background, because something happens. They can tell, whoa, what's happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't have to really convince them of anything theoretically. I just have to get them sufficiently engaged initially. Let's try this. Okay, sure, why not? And And then when their own system starts to talk to them, they're there, and I give them support to stay there and keep listening and keep deepening. And and then it's amazing how these automatic actions, behaviors, trajectories will start to disorganize. That's the exercise. And in their place, interesting things show up, which provide the possibility for they themselves seeing how they can act differently in something that before carried them away.